Ladies and gentlemen, whether you hate Trump or you love Trump, whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, no matter what, we can all agree that this recent executive order done by Donald Trump could be a massive, massive W. Yes, the Guaranteeing Fair Banking for All Americans executive order was dropped yesterday. I really wasn't sure if I wanted to cover it, but I think it really does come down to the end. I think we should cover it just so that we're aware of what's going on, because whether it does help us or not with our whole situation with essentially payment processors debanking people, again, the whole thing with Steam, with them taking down games based on it being offensive, and yes, a lot of the situations happening, especially within Japan, where, Taru Yamada and Zunko here has pretty much been covering for a while now, is a lot of the companies in Japan losing their payment processors based on inappropriate material that are lawful to sell. With all this situation happening here, the potential of this executive order is massive. There's a potential that it could resolve a lot of those issues. But at the same time, I think when I first read it, a lot of the wording in it does sort of lead me to believe that it's more focused towards political stuff. The banks can no longer debank you for being affiliated with a certain political group. I mean, he does sort of outline it a lot in the purpose area here. It's specifically getting into things like January 6th. It's getting into things like, yes, if you had Trump or MAGA, some sort of affiliation there, you were completely debanked. But there is a lot of wording in the actual stuff here that it gets into that sort of does lean more towards the idea of it being very broad. And that's a good thing. It's broad in the sense that it could potentially lead into companies like Steam and whatnot being able to fight back. And that's the good thing. But whether it does or does not, I think the good thing that this sort of does is it opens awareness to it, that it could lead to things that could be more solidified. Because this is just an executive order. This could be slapped down, it could be, dismissed or whatever. With this is law. And I think with having something like this already pre-established, something like the Fair Access to Banking Act could be more easier to accept. And this is what I was kind of getting into for a while now. When I told people, go read this act, see if it's something that you like, and then call your representatives and say, hey, this is something I want to look into, or ask them questions about it. And I think with having something like this already pre-established, something like this might be more acceptable. And the idea that, yes, the Fair Access to Banking Act was essentially groups trying to combat this stuff. This is why the Fair Access to Banking Act was originally submitted, was because people were being deplatformed, firearms companies were being, debanked, all that kind of stuff. Trump's just jumping straight to the executive order. But again, in order to get it solidified as law, we need something like this, and the executive order could open that door to it. So now people, when they go to the representatives and talk about the Fair Access to Banking Act, they can talk about, yeah, it's similar to the whole executive order. Let's solidify it. Let's solidify that sucker. Because again, the Fair Access to Banking Act is much more specific to the idea of you can't deny people if they're doing lawful things. Plain and simple. Whereas again, the executive order, what I've read so far, seems more leaning towards the idea you can't discriminate against religion and political beliefs and political sides. Let's actually look into it. Let's actually look into it to kind of get an idea of exactly what they're doing here. In the introduction here, where they have the purpose, it gets into, again, the whole access, being denied based on who you affiliate with politically, stuff like that. Essentially creating a choke point, able to kind of deplatform people, debank people in order to destroy them, essentially. In the policy itself, we get into the nitty-gritty of it. It is the policy of the United States that no American should be denied access to financial services because of their constitutionally or statutorily protected beliefs, affiliation, or political views, and to ensure that politicized or unlawful debanking is not used as a tool to inhibit such beliefs, affiliations, or political views. Again, it's very political views, very, belief-centric, but there is things such as, affiliations that are in here. Banking decisions must instead be made on the basis of individualized, objective, and risk-based analysis. Again, this is similar to the whole Banking Act thing that we were talking about before. It does seem like this is more focusing it in on you need to have an actual impact to you. You can't just say this is offensive, you have to have an actual impact. Now again, I don't like the inclusion of risk-based analysis because it sort of opens the door to them basically going, oh, well, we were going to lose a lot of customers, so we had to get rid of this. It was going to damage our brand, and that's what's been in the stupid policies for all these companies, including MasterCard and Visa, this idea of them being able to decline people based on things that will damage their brand. That could still technically be there. Getting the definitions, the term politicized or unlawful debanking refers to the act by a bank, savings association, credit union, or other financial service provider to directly or indirectly adversely restrict access to or adversely modify the conditions of accounts, loans, or other banking products or financial services of any customer or potential customer on the basis of a customer's or potential customer's political or religious belief, or on the basis of the customer's or potential customer's lawful business activities that the financial service provider disagrees with or disfavors for political reasons. Again, it sounds so good. It sounds so good, and then it goes political. It sounds so good, and then it goes political. That's why I was so conflicted when I'm reading this, is it doesn't sound right. Again, they're talking about the term politicized or unlawful debanking, and that's what they're defining here. But that's the stuff where it kind of just throws it off the end there. It's good and then throws it off the end. It's unlawful debanking, but it's politicized. Now, here's the key thing here. This is the big thing. This is the big thing that I think is so broad, it could actually help. Section 4, removing reputational risk and politicized or unlawful debanking. Within 180 days of the date of this order, each appropriate federal banking regulator shall, to the greatest extent permitted by law, remove the use of reputational risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking. This is the key thing here. This sounds so broad, this could actually help. Or again, it could open the door to things like the Fair Access to Banking Act. The idea is that removing this whole reputational risk crap is a very broad term that they put in their policies. Again, like we mentioned earlier with MasterCard right here, this idea of it might damage our brand, this kind of stuff. And the fact that it says or there, or equivalent concept, it doesn't have to say reputational risk. It just has to be that same concept. The idea that it might hurt our brand. It might make us look bad. That kind of stuff. Again, that with what we're kind of getting into here with this executive order, or at least the potential reason why it was originally created, or he basically says it, the idea that because you're affiliated with this political party, we can't do business with you because it looks bad, because that person looks really bad. This political leader looks like they could damage things. They look like this. They look like that. The usual political stuff. And we're not getting into that technically. We're just kind of focusing the reason for this. This could be so broad, it could actually affect the situation we're having with Steam. And again, like I said before, the reason why I keep bringing this whole thing up, even though I don't have anything to do with the games they're taking down there, it's a slippery slope and they've opened the door and everybody's acknowledged that. Everybody acknowledges, and most people, they don't care about those games. They care about the future. And again, they care about what they've seen hundreds of times before with a lot of these political groups that are coming after, different companies in Japan that people like Taro Yamada have been kind of fighting against. That could result in politicized or unlawful debanking, as well as any other considerations that could be used to engage in such debanking from their guidance documents, manuals, and other materials, other than the existing regulations or materials requiring notice and comment rulemaking, used to regulate or examine financial institutions over which they have jurisdiction. The removal of such concepts shall be made clear by each appropriate federal banking regulator through the formal guidance to the examiners. The federal banking regulators shall also consider rescinding or amending existing regulations consistent with applicable law to eliminate or amend any regulations that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking, and to ensure that any regulated firm's or individual's reputation is considered for regulatory, supervisory, banking, or enforcement purposes solely to the extent necessary to reach a reasonable and apolitical risk-based assessment. Again, we're getting to risk-based assessment again. Again, that's sort of what I'm seeing with this whole thing, is it's very political focused, it's very religious focused, but at the same time, it sort of creeps open that door, again, that somebody like Steam could potentially go to them and go, hey, you've seen the executive order, back off now. But again, this is executive order. It's not law itself. We need something solidified. And again, I think the biggest positive of this whole thing is that it could potentially help us. But like I said before, I think it opens the door for people to talk to their representatives and say, hey, look at that guaranteed fair banking for all Americans. I also like this Fair Access to Banking Act, and I think it's pretty much the same thing, right? Why don't we put this in effect? Brownie points. Brownie points. Hey, brownie points right here. You get in with the guy. Go get this in there. Get this in there. It might be a good thing. And again, I welcome people to go read it themselves. They don't have to back Fair Access to Banking Act. I personally think it's really good. It has a lot of really positive things in it. You can just at least talk to your, representatives and say, hey, can we do something like a law like this that is going to be not so much just about politics and religion and all that kind of stuff, but make it more broad of the idea. Let's make these payment processors actually have to can't do payment processing as long as it's legal. Plain and simple. This idea that MasterCard has this stupid stipulation here where, if it looks bad, it might hurt our mark. Nobody cares about the MasterCard mark. Nobody cares about that. Literally, when this whole thing happened, I had to go look about which ones were on my cards because I had no clue. I didn't care. I went to a bank. The bank is nearby. Their rates and interest and whatnot are good for me. I signed up for them, and it just happens to have this logo on the card. I don't care which logo's on the card. Nobody cares what logo's on the card. Nobody cares what logo's on the website. Who cares is people using this as a weapon. They use it as a weapon, and the activists are using it as a weapon. This is literally a stipulation in here just so they can use this as a weapon to deplatform people, to take down things they don't like. This is literally their law. They made this as a lawmaker. That's literally what it is. So it needs to stop. And again, I think this is a good first step. I think it's too focused on politics that I don't know if it'll actually help. But we'll see. I think in Steam, it's still listing that thing, and I don't think that Steam's going to take down that policy anytime soon because they're still technically under their thumb. This is going to take some time to hopefully kind of roll out for the effects of it to actually happen. It might require somebody to sort of step out and say, try me. It might take itch.io to go, well, you seen the executive order, come at me, bro. I doubt it. I doubt itch.io is going to step out there and put themselves at risk in order to try that out. But it could turn into Steam basically saying, well, you heard them. Because that's literally what they did to take down Steam. When the whole situation happened with Steam here, what did they tell the journalists? They went to the banks, and the banks came to us. That sounds awfully familiar with what this could possibly be slapping down. The idea that the banks themselves are contacting them and saying, can't do that no more. Policies right there. And again, this is specifying taking down those policies. We'll see. But I wanted to get people informed on this, see if this is something you guys are interested in to keep an eye out for. But it could potentially be a big bonus for us. But again, I'm not holding my breath too much because of its focus. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content, you want to support channel more, become a member of the channel. Until next time, you'll take care.